Hey everyone, I just wanted to shoot a quick video regarding modifications I did to my bead roller. This is your typical bead roller that Princess Auto or Harbor Freight or KMS Tools sells. So typically the first thing we all do is build a stand for it. This one I built probably about 5 years ago when I bought this. It's a little overkill. It was like 2" by 2" quarter wall tubing, which was way too strong really, and it weighs a ton. The other thing you want to do on these right away is you want to brace the plate of it, because what will happen is if you're going in one pass on fairly thick metal, the plate of it will actually flex back and forth. So what I did on mine is I used 1/2" plate, which I just happen to have laying around, and once again pretty overkill. I drilled a whole bunch of holes in it. I kind of jokingly said it was to keep dust off the top, and you know, once again, I guess I had a bunch of time on my hands. When I built my stand, I welded it right to that plate. I'm not sure that was the best thing to do, but it seemed like the way to do it at this point. To do it again, I believe I would build a different stand. I'd mount it off the middle. I also built, you know, a really strong brace there. So to move the thing around, I put some rigid casters on the back here, so you could tilt the thing back and move it around and then set it back in place. Once again, in retrospect, it's a bit of a pain in the ass to move the thing around. It does make it more mobile, but it is quite a bear. The other thing I did is I took some skateboard wheels and I bolted them to the bottom side, so that kind of compensates for the unevenness on the concrete floor. So my general plan was to power this thing up at some point, and I was going to get a treadmill motor and probably run a chain drive off the one end. But for now it's still a hand crank. I don't really use it much at this point. So it's a good tool to have around. They're a great tool, and at that price point of what you can buy them for, they're a really good tool. But if you spend about a day and do a bunch of mods, you can make it into, you know, a much better tool. Stronger, better, easier to use. So basically, like I say, it comes down to the bracing first and foremost. Secondly, what I did here is I got rid of the bolt, which they give you kind of a square-headed bolt for here. I took an old clamp I had, a C-clamp, and I used the T-handle part of it. These aren't Acme threads, they're just kind of normal threads. It was a pretty cheap clamp, and I re-tapped this part out here. The other thing I do on these is I drill a hole here, and then I drill and tap into this block, because this block moves up and down when you put the tension on it. And then I built this little spring system here, so that when you tighten it down onto the metal and then you loosen it back off, it springs itself back up and out of the way, which is a really nice feature, because otherwise you have to lift this up to get the piece of metal out. So this works quite slick actually, and it's a real compact little system. The other advantage to this is on the back side of this bolt here can't be completely tight, otherwise this won't move. So it needs to be slightly loose. And the other advantage of this spring system is this bolt here will actually tighten against the side of that bolt, so it'll keep it from loosening up over time. You really don't got to worry about checking it out. So once again, simple little spring, nice compact little design, easy to use, and makes getting the metal in and out much easier. The other thing I wanted to do is have all the dies nice and handy. So down this bar, because it was 1/4" wall, I could actually drill and tap. So I drilled a whole bunch of extra holes for extra, you know, dies in the future, and then I used 3/8 by, I believe, 4.5" bolts. And that way you can have the like sets of dies together, and everything's kept nice and organized, and with the machine you don't have to go looking for them. So that's the modifications that I typically do to these. I did one recently for a friend of mine who uses it in his body shop, you know, fairly regularly. He bought a power kit for it from Eastwood, the motor kit, which is actually a really slick system, and it mounted up really nice. And I'm going to put footage of it up next. I did a few things different on his compared to mine. One of them is the stand mounts to the middle, and the bead roller itself is unboltable, which somehow I feel is a better idea. I don't know if you'll ever unbolt it for any reason, but it just seems like the better way to do it. I also put casters under his on all four corners, and the casters I got at Prince's Auto were the largest rubber casters I could find that had locks on them. That way you can roll the machine to where you're going to use it and lock the thing down so it won't roll around. I would have preferred to have gone with 2 ridges and 2 swivels, but you know, Prince's Auto, you kind of find the best deal of the best product, and that's what I went with on his. So I'm going to show footage of his, and I'll show the slight differences. One thing I did do on his is the adjuster there, where I just used my little clamp, the little C-clamp that I had that doesn't have Acme threads. For his, I went out and I bought like a 3-inch clamp, which did have nice Acme threads, which worked great for side force against the screw. So I cut the female threaded part of it off and actually welded it on, and I'll show you that in the footage of his. So yeah, stay tuned. So this is the bead roller that I did for my friend Dion. This is in a shop environment, so everything needed to be a little bit heavier duty. Basically the same thing. I built a stand. This is a much better design than mine. I put it on casters so it's easily roll aroundable. I welded on some bolts to hold the dies. I mounted his Eastwood power kit, which is a really nice kit. Speed control, forward, reverse. It's got a foot pedal to control it. And the only thing I really did different regarding mounting this is I added 2 more bolts here. Just a little more heavy duty, because in a shop environment a bunch of people are using it. For strengthening of the plate, we used, I believe it was 1.5 inch, 1/8 wall steel tubing. We also put a fence on it, which is really good for doing repeatable bead rolls. This one I made so it's detachable from the stand. And regarding the spring back system, I built this one a little more heavy duty. Same thing with the spring and a bolt threaded into this block here, so it springs back up. And then this was a C-clamp that I bought and cut apart for the Acme threads, which hold really good side forces on the threads. And then this was the part of the clamp that I cut off and welded for the Acme threads again. So once again, same as mine, just a little more heavy duty. And so far Dion's quite pleased with how it works. It works quite easily and effortlessly, and it's greatly improved the use of this tool. So that's the modifications I've done to a couple of these bead rollers. Hopefully some of you will find some use out of the things I've done and be able to incorporate them into your own to make it more usable. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. Bye now.